Hello everyone. In the previous video, we have created a new React app and also we have set up a Firebase account for this project. And also, if you remember, we have also created two buttons, sign in and sign up. Now, in this video, we'll create a login and register forms and also we'll store the email ID and password in our Firebase database. So if you haven't watched this previous video, please go and watch it because it is the continuation part of this present video. Okay, now we'll just go to this Visual Studio Code. And as we discussed in the previous video, we'll be using this model in our project. I'll just paste some of this code. This code is nothing but this some of the styles and some of the themes of this model. Here in the get model style, the themes are nothing but like these styles are actually to display the model or the pop-up exactly the center of the page, and the below is some of the styles of this model. Okay, now we have to import this make styles from this material UI, so that here you can see in the material core you can import this just like importing this make style here. Now we'll just create one variable and we'll just call this function here. I'll just name it as classes here and I'll just call this function here. Similarly, we also call this function here. I'll just store it in a variable. I'll name it as model style. I'll use useState here. Before that, make sure that you have to import useState from React. And we'll just copy this get model style. And by default, this will be the get model style here. Now I'll just create two useState variables. One is for login and there is for register, or one is for sign up and there is for sign in. Okay, now we'll just start creating a model here. To create a model, there is a tag name called model, which we should import from this material UI core. Here I have imported it. Make sure that you import this. And inside this model, I'll just create a one div for, and inside this div, I'll just create one form here using this form tag. And the first thing in the form will be like, we'll just display the logo on the top of this form. I'll just copy this part and I'll just paste this one. And make sure that it should be in the center of the model, so that I'll just keep this image tag in the center. Now, after this image, we just want three input forms. One is for name, another is for email ID, and other is for password. We'll just create one input form. And some of the attributes which we are going to use is like first one will be the placeholder. I'll just make it as username, or I'll just simply name. And the other will be like type. Type will be like text for this username. Now, before adding this, we just need three variables. For one is for username, and the other is for email ID and password. Now I'll just use this username here. The value of this input will be like username, and whenever the input value is changed, I'll just update this using this set username. In this way, you can update this input variable. Set username, and inside this, it will be the e.target value. In this way, you can update this username here. Similarly, I'll just do it for this email ID and password. I'll just copy and paste, and here placeholder will be like email. For this, it will be like password. Here it will be text itself, but here value will be like email, and here value will be like password. And make sure that here text is the type should be like password, so that user cannot see the password while typing. And also instead of set username, set email, and here set password. Now I'll just save it. Now in the model we have two attributes. One is open. If open is true, then this model will pop up, or else it will be disappeared. For now, I'll just make it as false here. By default, open sign up is false. I'll just copy and paste it here. And similarly, there is one another attribute called unclose. I'll just make it as whenever we click apart this pop-up, we'll just make it as false here. This thing will just make it as false. So that whenever this is false, this will be false. So that this will be closed. Now I'll just add some of the styles for this div1 form. Here I have added some styles in the for the div. The styles are here which we have created in the top of this code. Here I have just called these two styles here in this div tag. And now I'll just save this code. If I go to this browser, okay, here we got an error like input is not defined. I'll just come back, and here make sure that the input is imported from this material UI core. Save. Okay, now everything is looking good. We got an error. Okay, the error is like here it should be use state instead of use style. Just modify it. I'll just save. I'll just come back here. Now everything looks fine. If I click on the sign up, here nothing is happening because we haven't updated this button here. So that what we have to do is like whenever we click on the sign up, on click, we'll just make it as true. Here if you see for sign up we have created one, right? I'll just copy this. Now I'll save it. Okay, now if I click on the sign up, here you can see this model is created. Now I think we need some of this gap between this name, email ID and password. I'll just go back, and here I'll just add break here. I'll just copy and paste after every input. I'll just save it now. Okay, now name, email ID and password is set. Now the other thing we have to do is we have to create one button here to submit. Now we'll just come down here, and I'll just create one button here. The button text will be like sign in, and whenever we click on this, we have to call one function. Like it should be like on click, we'll just create one function sign in here, and I'll just copy it. In the top of this, I'll just create one function here. For now, I'll just make it as blank, and also make sure that the button type will be like submit. I'll just save it. I'll just go to this, and here you can see this button is added here, and also I'll just add these two breaks below this input. Okay, now this pop-up or this model is looking good. I'll just come back. If I press other than this model, here you can see this is vanished. If I click on the sign up, now it is looking good. Now if I enter all these details and if I sign in, nothing will be happening because we haven't completed this function yet. Now I have copied all this model, and I will just paste it below this, because one is for sign in and there is for sign up. Here for sign up we have already created. Now I'll just change this text to sign in here, and we have set up here everything is okay. And when it comes to inputs, here we don't need name input text here, and because while logging or while signing in we don't need name entering, we just need email ID and password. And also here on click it should be sign up, and also the text will be like sign up here. I'll just create one function here for sign up. I'll just copy and paste it here, and I'll just make it as sign up. Now for the button also I'll just add one. I'll just copy this, I'll just paste this, and here I'll just instead of sign up I'll just make it as sign in. Okay, I'll save it. Now, if I come back to my browser, if I click on the sign in, now sign in email ID and password. Similarly, for if I sign up, it will be like name, email ID and password. Now everything looks fine. Now we'll just store this email ID and password which is entered by the user in the backend in the Firebase. So that we'll just use these two functions. First of all, we'll just complete this sign up function. It takes an event E, and before completing this, I'll just use the one function called event.prevent default. And then we'll just import authentication here from this Firebase. If you open this Firebase, here we have exported this authentication, right? I'll just import this and also just copy these two in the home.js. On the top, I'll just paste it here. And also I'll just make sure that you have imported this auth here, Firebase. In this way, you can import authentication from Firebase. Now below, you can use this auth here. And first of all, we need to create an account from the given email ID and password. There is one function called here create username, create user with email ID and password. I'll just take it and I'll just give email and password for this function. Now after creating this email ID and function, then if you remember, we have created one separate form for the entering the name. By default, this function only updates the email ID and password and also this document user's document ID in the database. But we also need this name to be updated in the database, so that we should be manually entering or updating this into the database. Okay, after this creating a new username with this email ID and password, it will be returning an authenticated user. I'll just call it as auth user, and I'll just take this user. We'll just return by updating this display name here. I'll just call it as auth user dot. It has one user, and inside this, we'll just update this profile. Here you can see update profile. I'll just call it as display name, and display name we'll just make it as username, which we have given from the input form. And after updating this, we'll just add one function like catch if anything error happens. I'll just get alert function here, so that using this our app doesn't crash. In this way, I can update all this username and password and email ID in our database. Here, make sure that the spelling is correct. Now, similarly, if I come to the sign in, the steps will be similarly same. I'll just copy this event.private default txt. Now, instead of I'll just call the author. And now instead of creating user with email ID and password, there is one function like sign in with email ID and password. Here, if you see it, the function sign in with email ID and password. For this, we have to send this email ID and password for this function. After creating or login with email ID and password, I think that is enough. Now we'll just copy and paste this error function. If any error comes, it will just show in the alert. And also after a sign up is completed, I'll just make this set sign up false, so that the model will be disappear. Similarly for sign in also, I'll just come down here. I'll just make it as false. Now I'll just save it. Now if I go back to our function here, if I click sign up now, I'll just enter my name and email ID. I'll just enter some password. Now I'll just click sign in button. Okay, here we got an error like there is no record corresponding to this identifier. Okay, we are getting this error because if you go back to our code here for sign up, we have written sign up, but here we have created this for sign in, right? So that here make sure that it is sign in, and also here it should be sign in. For the above code, it should be like sign up. We have given a wrong button for this operation. Sign up. Now if I save it, if I come back, now if I click sign up, and now if I click sign up here, now I think if I go to this Firebase console, okay, now here you can see my email ID and my user ID is stored in the database. Now I'll just come back. Now I just try to sign in here. Here my username and password. If I click sign in, now here we didn't get any error. That means that we have successfully completed this login and registration form using this Firebase. Here our next task is like whenever the user has been logged in, this sign in and sign up button should be not be displayed here. Instead of it should be displaying the logout button, and whenever we click on the logout button, then the user should become out of our app, and this sign in and sign up button should be displayed. For that, we'll just use this use effect function here, and also I'll just import it before using this React. Now as soon as we load our app, the system or this use effect checks the user whether the user is present or not. And I'll just from here I'll just call one variable const subscribe. I'll just make it as I'll just check like auth dot on authenticate change. Like whenever the authorization has changed, it will just return our authorization user. I'll just check if this user is present or not. Like if authenticated user is present, then we'll just store it in one variable. To store it in one variable, we'll just create one use state here. I'll just copy and paste. I'll just name it as user and set user. For by default, the user will be null. Now, whenever we find the auth user, I'll just set this auth user. Set user. I'll just add auth user here. Okay, here the U is small, so that we are getting error. Okay, now if the auth user is not present, we'll just make this set user as null. And now return, I'll just call this function here. For now, I'll just remove it. Okay, now I'll save it. Now we'll just create one logout button here in the top of this code. I'll just come here. Okay, here inside this below this div, I'll write one condition like if there is user, then we'll just display only the logout button. And whenever we click on the logout button, and the code is simple, I'll just remove this set sign up and just call this auth function, and I'll just click sign out here. Here you can see function sign out. Okay, this is as simple as it is. Whenever click on this login button, the user will be automatically sign out. And here, if user is present, we should display this logout button. If not, we should display this login, sign in and sign up. I'll just get question mark. If user, it should display this, or else here I'll just copy these two. I'll just paste here. I'll just save it. If I go back to our code, here you can see as the user is logged in, it is showing the logout. If I click on the logout, Now here you can see sign in and sign up buttons are displaying. Now I just try to sign in with my email ID and password. Now if I click sign in, here you can see the sign in sign up button are gone and only logout button is present. Okay, that's all for this video. In this video we have created this sign in sign up buttons and logout button, and also we have stored this email credentials in the backend database, and we'll just come up in the next video. Thank you.